This video discusses how to divide polynomials using synthetic division. Synthetic division is a division technique that is very quick. However, it is limited when we can use it. Synthetic division can only be done when the divisor is of the form plus or minus a number. That is, the divisor must be linear with a leading coefficient of 1. We're going to start by going over the strategy for dividing using synthetic division. These steps are going to make a lot more sense once we actually do a problem. But let's go over them first. The first thing you need to do is find the zero of the divisor by setting the divisor equal to 0 and solving. Then we're going to set up the synthetic division problem as follows. We're going to start by making our regular division bar. Instead of putting the divisor on the outside of our division bar, we're going to put only the 0 of the divisor. And then underneath our division bar, instead of putting the dividend, we're going to put only the coefficients of the dividend. Next, we're going to bring down the leading coefficient. This will be the first coefficient of the dividend, straight down. We're going to be leaving this area blank, like so. Skip a line, and you're going to bring down this first number. This first number is the first coefficient of your quotient. See, when we do synthetic division, the quotient actually ends up being on the bottom instead of on top of the division bar, like it is when we do long division. Now that we have the first coefficient of our quotient, we're going to multiply that number by the 0 of our divisor. And we're going to put it underneath the second coefficient of our dividend, right here where we have the star. Next, we're going to add down. We're going to add the two numbers together and write the result in the bottom of the row. This is going to be the coefficient of the second term of our quotient. We're going to repeat these steps over and over until there are no numbers left. Now we need to actually write our answer. The numbers on the bottom row under the line are the coefficients of the quotient. Since with synthetic division our divisor is always linear, the degree of the quotient will be 1 degree less than the degree of the dividend. So you're going to use that fact coupled with the coefficients of the quotient to write the quotient. You'll just start on the left with whatever your degree is. Say the degree of your quotient is supposed to be x to the third. You're just going to start with the coefficients of the quotient on the left, start with x to the third, and go down in descending order. As I said, once we do one of these problems, go back and reread these steps. They'll make a whole lot more sense. A few notes about synthetic division. The dividend must be written in descending order. You want to include placeholders for any missing terms in the dividend. If you do not include these placeholders, you will get the wrong answer every time. Any remainder should be written in fraction form, which is where we write plus and then we put the remainder over the divisor. And remember that the degree of the quotient is equal to the degree of the dividend minus the degree of the divisor. Let's divide x squared plus 12x plus 35. We'll divide that by x plus 5. Well, I'm going to start by making my division bar. Underneath the division bar goes the coefficients of the dividend. So that's 1, 12, and 35. On the outside, we want to put the 0 of the divisor. To get the 0 of our divisor, we're just going to take our divisor, set it equal to 0, and solve. We get x to be -5. So that's what goes on the outside. We're going to skip a line underneath the coefficients of our dividend and then put a horizontal line. Now that we have it set up, we want to start by dropping our first coefficient straight down below our horizontal line. 1 will be the coefficient of the first term of our quotient. Now we're going to multiply that 1 by our divisor. 1 times -5 is -5, and that goes right here underneath of the 12. Now we're going to add down. That gives us 7. This is the coefficient of the second term of our quotient. We're going to take this number, multiply it by the 0 of our divisor. 7 times -5 is -35. We add down and get 0. So this portion is done because we're out of numbers. Every time, this last number is always your remainder. I like to put a little vertical line here to kind of separate the remainder from the coefficients. These numbers here are the coefficients of our quotient. Let's talk about what the degree of our quotient would be. The degree of the quotient is the degree of the dividend minus the degree of the divisor. The degree of the dividend is 2. The degree of the divisor is 1. 2 minus 1 is 1, so we know the degree of our quotient is 1. We're going to start with the coefficient of 1, and we're starting with a linear x, so that's going to be 1x to the first plus 7. There's no remainder. Our answer is x plus 7. The 1 in front of the x is, of course, optional. I'm just trying to emphasize that I am substituting the 1 as the coefficient of x and the 7 as our constant. I want to do the same problem here on the side using long division just to show you the parallels between the two processes. I'm going to do it quickly. X goes into x squared, x times, we multiply back, x squared plus 5x. We need to subtract this whole thing, so we change our signs. Adding down, x squareds fall out, 12x minus 5x is 7x, and we bring down our next term. X goes into 7x, positive 7 times. Multiplying back that 7 with our divisor, 7 times x is 7x, and 7 times 5 is 35. We subtract this, we'll change our signs, and when we add down, the 7x's and the 35's cancel out, leaving us with 0. So you'll see we got the same answer. But what I want to point out is the numbers within the problem. So notice here we have 12 minus 5 equals 7. And right here we have 12x minus 5x equals 7x. And then here we have 35 minus 35 equals 0. And we have the same thing right here. So basically we are doing long division just without the variables. It allows us to perform division much faster. Let's try another example. Let's divide 3x cubed plus 2x squared minus 8x plus 4. Divide that by x minus 1. We'll start by setting up our division. Underneath our division bar is the coefficients of our dividend. And on the outside is the 0 of our divisor. Our divisor is x minus 1, so the 0 is positive 1. Notice that it's always the opposite sign. We start by dropping our first number straight down. 3 will be the coefficient of the first term of our quotient. We're going to take that 3, multiply it by the 1 on the outside, get 3, put it under the 2. Add down. We get 5. 5 is the coefficient of the second term of our quotient. We're going to take that 5, multiply it by the 1 on the outside, get 5, put it under the negative 8. Add down. We get negative 3. Multiply this negative 3 by the 1 on the outside. We get negative 3, add down, and a positive 1. The last number is always your remainder. And these numbers before the last number are the coefficients of our quotient. The degree of our quotient will be the degree of our dividend minus the degree of our divisor. Our dividend was degree 3, our divisor was degree 1. 3 minus 1 is 2, so the degree of our quotient is going to be 2. That means we're starting off with x squared. Start on the left with the coefficients of your quotient, so that's going to be 3x squared plus 5x minus 3, and this time we have a remainder. We always want to put a plus sign and then put the remainder over the divisor. Make sure that you put the remainder over the original divisor and not the 0 of our divisor. We end up with 3x squared plus 5x minus 3 plus 1 over x minus 1.